Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a journey of redemption for anyone who has ever been labeled a daydreamer, a procrastinator, or just plain unmotivated. We are going to completely dismantle the stigma around what society casually calls laziness. Psychology actually suggests that your messy desk, your tendency to just stare blankly out the window, and your total aversion to mundane tasks, well, they aren't flaws at all. In fact, by the end of this explainer, we're going to uncover exactly why your perceived laziness might actually be a hidden superpower, one that points directly to high-level cognitive efficiency.
So let's get right to the heart of it. Have you ever been judged, maybe by a boss, a teacher, or even a partner, because you'd vastly prefer to spend 3 solid hours just thinking deeply about a complex problem instead of spending 30 minutes doing mindless busy work? I mean, to them, you look like you're doing absolutely nothing, right? You're sitting still, you're not checking off boxes, but internally, you know you're doing the heavy lifting. You can literally feel the friction between how you naturally operate and how the world expects you to operate. And honestly, there is this massive disconnect between external perception and psychological reality. To the outside world, you appear inactive, indecisive, maybe even entirely unmotivated. But the psychological truth is a whole different story. You aren't doing nothing. Your brain is actually engaging in a highly advanced process of reallocating cognitive bandwidth. It's essentially shutting down physical movement and surface-level stuff to pour all of its energy into solving problems that actually matter. It's a feature, not a bug.
Okay, let's actually dive into this and look at the first psychological mechanic driving this behavior: cognitive complexity. Now, while most people might look at a task and immediately jump right into simple, linear action, your brain is wired differently. It naturally and automatically begins to examine every single angle, every potential consequence, and every hidden possibility of a situation before ever making a move. And let me tell you, that is a massive processing load.
Because of this cognitive complexity, what an outsider definitively labels as indecisiveness is actually high-level mental efficiency at work. You're simply pausing to gather all the necessary data to choose the absolute best possible outcome. You're not stuck. Your internal processors are just running millions of simulations. Taking immediate action without this data gathering phase, well, it feels totally reckless to a high IQ mind. You're basically trading immediate visible motion for long-term calculated accuracy.
Let's pause for a second because I want to point out a really interesting pattern here. Did you know that smart people are actually less satisfied with constant socializing? Yeah. If you find yourself vanishing from social media, dodging text messages, or skipping parties just to stay home and think, you need to know something super important. You are not being antisocial. You are instinctively protecting your highly valuable mental energy so you can use it for deep creation. Constant socializing just drains the battery that your complex mind absolutely needs to build and analyze.
Which brings us to a second, and honestly highly liberating concept: selective organization. High IQ minds simply do not organize everything equally. They literally just don't have the energy to waste on it. Instead, they deploy a cognitive strategy where the brain intentionally ignores surface-level chaos to focus its energy purely on high-priority systems, complex ideas, and work that genuinely excites them.
Think about how this actually plays out in real life. You might have a total disaster zone of a bedroom, or a desk covered in old coffee cups and stacks of random papers. But I bet you can find a specific digital file on your computer in 3 seconds flat. To an observer, it looks like a hopelessly inconsistent mess. But psychologically, this is peak mental efficiency. Your brain has rightly decided that, hey, a perfectly folded t-shirt is irrelevant right now, but a perfectly categorized work system, that's vital.
All right, let's decode another quirk that often gets completely misunderstood. Do you ever catch yourself talking out loud when no one else is around? Most people think that's just a strange, maybe eccentric habit, but psychology actually has a specific term for it: verbal reasoning. It's the active process of turning abstract, swirling thoughts into concrete words so you can organize those ideas more efficiently and arrive at solutions way faster.
So the next time you find yourself pacing around, talking to yourself alone in the park or in your kitchen, please do not feel self-conscious. Seriously, you are not weird. You are utilizing an incredibly advanced problem-solving tool used by highly efficient brains. You're effectively giving your brain a secondary processing channel, using that auditory feedback to untangle the massive web of cognitive complexity we talked about earlier.
Furthermore, we see this a lot. High IQ individuals naturally tend to reject modern digital conditioning. If you look lazy to your peers, it might just mean you've evolved past the digital slot machine mechanics of our era. You've stopped reacting to the variable rewards of constant notifications. You're ignoring likes and followers.
Instead, what you're doing is moving away from frantic consumption and transitioning into deep creation, a state that absolutely requires you to embrace long, seemingly inactive periods of silence.
Now, let's be completely honest. We have all been here. Have you ever been introduced to someone and completely forgotten their name 5 minutes later? Look, don't panic. It is not a bad memory, it's cognitive overload. While you were shaking their hand, your brain was likely analyzing the conversation, reading the room, and juggling like 3 complex ideas at once. It simply decided that the arbitrary label of a name was far less important than the actual concepts being discussed. It's selective retention at its finest.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Moving into the brain blueprint protocol, tactics for the lazy genius.
So it's great to know your brain is highly capable, right? But if you're constantly dreaming big while doing absolutely nothing, you might just be addicted to your own potential rather than the actual effort required to realize it. We need to stop your mind from working against you. So here are 3 non-negotiable steps to optimize your efficiency. First, you have to stop waiting for motivation to strike. Second, you need to radically change how you track time by implementing the 90-minute rule. And third, you must align your internal identity before you try to force any external habits. Let's break down exactly how you execute these.
The absolute crucial point is this: readiness comes after action, not before it. Because your brain loves to overthink. If you wait around to feel motivated, you're going to analyze the task until you literally talk yourself out of it. You have to train yourself to initiate tasks from a completely neutral mood. You don't need to feel excited, you just need to start. The motivation and the focus, they will naturally follow once those cognitive wheels are physically in motion.
Next up, we need to talk about a very specific number: 90. You see, your brain does not understand the arbitrary concept of an 8-hour workday. It operates on deep biological rhythms, and trying to force it to focus for 4 hours straight without a break, well, that's exactly why you end up experiencing massive crashes and just staring blankly at your screen.
Your brain naturally tracks sleep cycles, which happen in roughly 90-minute intervals. And this rhythm, it continues even when you're awake. So to maximize your high IQ focus, you need to plan your heavy cognitive work and, just as importantly, your rest in these 90-minute blocks. Doing this prevents the grogginess of sleep inertia and perfectly aligns your complex processing power with your body's natural energy peaks and valleys. Work intensely for 90 minutes and then actively step away.
Finally, you absolutely must align your internal narrative. The human brain vigorously resists any actions that contradict how you see yourself. So, if you secretly harbor the belief that you're just lazy or undisciplined, your brain will actually fight your attempts to be productive just to maintain that identity. You have to shift your identity first. Acknowledge that you are a highly efficient selective thinker. Once that internal identity matches your true capability, the environmental changes, they become effortless.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to test how your mind is wired. Think about this. Do you treat your birthday like a totally normal day simply because you value your own internal validation way more than the sudden, chaotic spotlight of other people's attention? If that resonates with you, you are undeniably part of this community of silent thinkers. Being wired differently isn't a flaw, it is a massive advantage once you have the blueprint. If you found this explainer eye-opening, make sure to subscribe so we can keep decoding the human mind together. Keep thinking deeply, and I'll see you in the next one.